Bienvenidos, Ushamdi, and welcome Anne Arundel Community College learners from the Spring 2023 semester taking the CTS-233 Section 400 Network Programmability course. This is the Cisco Networking Academy's DEVASC 200-901 Certification Exam Preparation course, and in this video tutorial we're going to be taking a look at the first of two packet tracer activities from Module 8, and these are the last two packet tracer activities for the course. And so what are you going to learn in this video? Well, this is all about software-defined networking. So we're going to configure an SDN controller. We're going to add it to the topology. We're going to then use that SDN controller to discover the topology, and we'll compare and contrast how this used to be done in the olden days. And then we're going to use the SDN controller to gather some configuration information and to configure network settings like DNS, NTP, excuse me, and others. All right, well, let's go ahead and dive in. We're not going to validate here within Packet Tracer. We're not going to go to every single device, which is what they're asking you to do. So we're just going to jump. When they say admin, they're referring to this PC that's right up here. This PC PT admin is what they're referring to. So we're on that PC. Let's go to the desktop. We're going to go to the command prompt. And we're just going to go ahead and test our connectivity. We're going to say SSH-L Cisco, and we're going to go to 10.0.1.4. Now remember, that is a -L in this command, not a 1. If you put a 1 in there, you're going to get an error. And the password is the one we've been using all course, which is Cisco123bang. All right, so this is sort of the old school. They're having you do this because they want you to see, okay, well, if I needed to gather information here, I'd have to SSH over to the device, you know, maybe do a show run, and they're asking you to do a show version and include the release to try to find out what the version of software is. And then we can see here it's 16.3.2. And so they have you do this so that you can see that that this is kind of, again, this is like how you'd screen scrape information. Now, they want you to copy and paste this information off to a clipboard somewhere and save the file as software-versions.txt. And so to do that, again, you would simply highlight things. Whoops, sorry. You would simply highlight things. And it looks like, there we go. You would highlight things, edit, I'm sorry, copy, and then paste. And so I'll leave that to you to go ahead and knock out. Now, this is also a packet tracer activity that you can do irrespective of whether you've got the DEVASC virtual machine, as long as you have access to the packet tracer activity. Now, they wanted you to go through and gather information on the other 9 devices that are out there, but we're not going to be doing that. We're going to go right into configuring that PT controller. Now, again, old school, you used to kind of use SNMP, maybe automation tools like a bash script or an expect script, or maybe even a Python script of some kind. And so this is the sort of new way to do it, using software-defined networking. And so we're going to go ahead and come down here to end devices, and you can see right here, they've got this device, network controller. And so, excuse me, we're going to drag our network controller out here, and, whoops, sorry, as you can see, we're going to put it right above switch 1, because that's the switch into which we're going to go ahead and connect this, and we're going to come down here and click on the connections lightning bolt. We're going to grab a copper straight through. We're going to go from gig 00 down to the first gigabit Ethernet interface there. Pull this down a little bit, and we'll hit the fast forward arrow, in this case to get spanning tree, excuse me, to get spanning tree to do its thing. All right, let's configure our packet tracer SDN controller. So we're going to click on it, and let's give ourselves a little bit more real estate with which to work here. And we're going to go to the config. Now over here under the, you can see we've got this real world tab. We're going to get to that in just a second. Right now we're going to do interface gigabit Ethernet 0. So the IP address on the controller is going to be 192.168.101.254. Subnet mask is correct. And then we want to go ahead and make sure that we get the gateway, the DNS gateway, which is going to be under settings. And that's going to be 192.168.101.1. Now, if you don't put this gateway address in here, the first thing they have you do is you try to go from the admin PC, I believe, to get to the controller. Well, the controller's not going to be able to go anywhere, right? So you want to make sure your SDN controller's got the default gateway in there and the address. Now over here on real world, This is where, oops, sorry, we're going to click on Real World. And if we click on the controller, they want you to go into your settings for Packet Tracer, right? And for on the Mac, it's going to be preferences, and they're having you look here in this miscellaneous area to ensure that enable external access for network controller REST API is checked, and it is, right? And I've done this on multiple Macs, and it's always been checked, but make sure you take a look at that to confirm that it is. And then when we come back here under Real World for controller, we just need to make sure that this is actually enabled, right? So we're going to click here, and the port should be 58,000, right? And so that would be the default port. I've never seen another value in here, but if you do see another value in here, make sure that you change that value to 58,000. All right, so now we're going to dive into what we would be doing in terms of using this SDN controller. Now, we're not going to be doing the configuration on the network controller itself. We're going to come back to the admin PC, because this is where we're going to hit the web page for the controller, and this is where we're going to do the configuration. So I'm going to go ahead and click on web browser. Again, if you wanted to confirm you had connectivity, you could ping, pull up the command tool and ping, but we're going to go ahead and go to HTTP 192.168.101.254, which is the address that we just gave that device. Now, this is pretty straightforward here. So again, username is Cisco, password Cisco123 bang, and we'll come down and confirm it, 123 bang. And so let's look and make sure we're not going to have any drama. Everything looks good. Now we're going to click on setup. So you could use any username and password there that you want, but we're just sticking with Cisco and then Cisco123 bang. And we're going to go ahead and log in. All right, so we are now in the dashboard. So let's go ahead and give ourselves even more room here with which to work. And so you can see we've got a lot going on. Percentage of hosts, and again, this is just kind of like your main landing dashboard here. Quality of service, anything going on there, network devices, hosts, and then we've got sort of our percentages here with the time chart throughout the day. And so an SDN controller, right, this is not a real SDN controller. This is Packet Tracer simulating an SDN controller, but at the end of the day, this is what you're going to have something similar to that you're going to be looking at on your screens. All right, so we're going to add credentials to access all the network devices. So from the network, from the network controller here, if we click right here, you can see we've got some different options. API docs, which we're going to be coming back to, policy, assurance, and provisioning. So we're interested in provisioning. And we're going to go ahead and up here at the top, add the credentials in. And again, the credentials the same for everything. So the username is Cisco, the password Cisco123 bang. And then we'll come down here, Cisco123 bang. And let's confirm that we don't have a typo in here anywhere. We don't. And then for the description, we're just going to enter in admin credentials. And we're going to click on OK. And so what we've just done here is we've added the network credentials in this network that we're looking at in Packet Tracer for every single device. Now, if you needed to add additional credentials in, you would click on Add Credential up here and then type in whatever the different username password combination was, because we're going to be selecting this in just a second when we go to do the discovery. So we started with the credentials. We're popping over here to the Discovery tab where we're going to come in, and our discovery type, we're going to go ahead and leave it as CDP, and the name, what is the name they want in here for? Oh, we'll just say New Discovery. Okay, so we're going to say New Discovery, and we're going to put the IP address in of the, or I'm sorry, for the name, we're going to do switch L1. There we go. The IP address is 192.168.101.2, and that's switch 1's address. Everything else is going to remain the same, with the exception of this credential list. So when I add in the credentials, I pick that Cisco admin credentials there. And then we click on Add. Now, you're going to see that the status is going to roll here. And previous semesters where we've done this activity, it takes a few seconds for that to happen. So what we're able to do is click the fast forward button. And let me do that 7 or 8 times. And then we come back to the interface here. We'll let the fast forwarding catch up. And then when we click on PT admin, we should see, there we go, that everything has been completed. And that's exactly what we want. So now we can use this network controller, this SDN controller that we've provided the credentials to. We've done the discovery of switch layer or switch L1. And so now we're going to come over here to network device. And you can see that it actually went out and it discovered all of the different network devices. And so what they're going to have us do now is sort of orient ourselves with the things that we can see. So if I was to click on router 1, we'd see the information for router 1. And this is the information that would have been gathered. The serial number, the product ID, the platform, the management IP, MAC address, software version, right? And those were kind of things that we were interested in seeing. If we were to take a look at switch router 1, we would see that information here. And then you can also see the devices to which it's connected. And so in this activity, we're highly reliant on CDP. Now, we'll go back to the dashboard. To get back to the dashboard, you just click up here and you click on dashboard, because now we should have some information that's been added in. So we can see the percentage of hosts that have been reached via ping that are in the managed state with the SDN controller here. We've got our ping status for these 6 hosts, and we've got 9 network devices. Now, they want us to kind of walk through the topology. So if I click over here and we come down to, not provisioning. If I click over here and we come down to assurance, you can see all kinds of additional information, right? And so it's sort of a dashboard that you can use that instead of having to get onto the admin PC and ping these devices, it's all happening right here on our SDN controller. If I take a look at the hosts, we can see the host devices, we can see the connected network devices to those hosts. The topology is going to give us a breakdown of the topology that we currently see. Path trace, which is something that they're going to have us do right now, is that we can trace our path to the different, or between 2 devices. So let's click on add path. Now you cannot put the host name in here. So let's just do 192.168.101.100. And we're going to go over to 10.0.1.129. So we're going to go from this server PT example server all the way over here to the admin PC. I'm going to click OK. And if we click on this, it's going to go ahead and say it's in progress. And it's basically tracing through the network topology to try to figure out how do we get from one end to the other. Now, the unknown devices, those are going to be your layer 2 switches, right? There's no layer 3 information to be gathered there. So we see unknown device. But again, we start from the example server. We go through an unknown device, which is going to be the switch it's connected into. Then it hits router 1. It goes to router 3, hits another switch, and then we end up over here at the admin PC. So now let's do the final piece of this lab. We're going to configure we're going to use the SDN controller to configure network settings that we would push out. So let's go ahead and go to the example server over here, because it's the example server where we are going to set the services we're pushing out. So let's pull this up here. Let's drag this down here. And if I click on services, they want us to take a look at DNS. And we can see here that we've got this A record, so everything is set with DNS and the DNS service is on. They want us to take a look at syslog. And we've got syslog set up right here. And then we want to look at NTP. Now, NTP, the few times I've looked at this, or a couple times I've looked at this, is not on. Okay, so it is on. All right, good. So I've looked at it a couple times and it comes up as off, right? So if you see that it's off, just make sure that the service is enabled. So now here's what we're going to do. We're going to go back to the admin PC. Whoops, sorry. Because we're going to configure a policy now. And so where do we do that? We've already got the web browser open. Up here, if I click on policy, this is where we define the policy that's going to get pushed out by the SDN controller. So again, comparing and contrasting, okay, I have to go out and log on to every single device and type in this information or cut and paste the information in on every single device. It's configured one time. We create the policy. We're going to push that policy out. All right. So here's what we're going to do on the network setting. You can see we had the QoS tab here, right? But we're not doing QoS. We're going to do some network settings. We could do AAA. We could do DNS. We could do NetFlow. We could do NTP. We can do syslog. And so you got to know that we're going to be doing DNS. And so the domain name is example.com. The IP address is going to be the server PT example server, right? Because that's who's hosting 168.101.100. So this is the configuration information we're going to be putting on to the Cisco devices here, not the PCs or the servers. So I'm basically configuring the SDN controller with network settings, a policy that's going to push this out to all of the devices that we're currently managing. All right, so I'm going to click on Save. All right, and then we'll come down to NTP. We're not doing any NetFlow. So the NTP server, same thing, 192.168.101.100. We're going to click on Save. And then I'm going to come down to syslog and the server IP. And look, you could have more than one server IP here, but 192.168.101.100. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on Save. And then we're going to say Push Config. Now that I've saved everything, and again, they ask you to click on these just one more time. Hey, let's make sure that the 192.168.101.100 is in here with this for the DNS, the domain name. We're going to click on Save for everything there, or Save for what we're on, and then I'm going to click on Push Config. So now it's going to go ahead and show us the settings one last time here. I'm going to click OK. Save successfully. And so we should see that this has been pushed out to all of the devices. Now, they also have a note in here about this message you see here. This functionality is only supported on devices running iOS XE and Switch 2960-24TT. So if you've got older ISR routers in here, like 2900s in topology, this wouldn't work, right? We need to have iOS XE routers in here running the 16.x branch of code, which is what Packet Tracer's kind of using, or this 2960-24TT. Okay, so at this point, we are going to, hold on one second. Yeah, we configured the global policy. All right, so how are we going to verify that this was done? Well, let's jump back up here. We're going to close the browser down, and we're getting toward the end of the activity. We're going to come here, and I think we're still connected. We are not, but that's okay. Let's log in here. Cisco 123 bang. It's going to put me on router 3, right? So what would I do to check? Well, I could just say show run, and let's see. Do I see the IP domain name? And we do, example.com, and there is the name server. Let's float down a little bit further here below the interfaces, and do we see the, not the default gateway, sorry about that. We're looking for the syslog server. Did it get put in there? It did. What about the NTP server? It did. So we can further check this by saying show NTP associations, and we should see, there it is, 192.168.101.100. What about a show NTP status? And there we go. Clock is synchronized, and it's synchronized to the server PT example server, that same information that we had put in there. Now, last thing we're going to do is we've got logging. Sorry, I was typing clear, going back to the Ubuntu DevASC virtual machine days there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and say, and they wanted us to do this on router 1, but I guess we could probably do this show IP interface brief. I think we might be able to get away with doing it here, possibly. Okay, let's do it on router 1 so we don't break anything. So here's router 1, and again, I'm just going to come over to the CLI real briefly. We're going to shut an interface down, and let's go ahead here and say, go into global config, and we're going to say interface serial 010, 010, and we're going to shut that interface down. Now, by shutting that interface down, it's taking OSPF down with the adjacency there, and we should be generating a syslog message. Then we're going to say no shut. And how would we confirm that a syslog message has been sent? Well, let's just step over to the server PT here, come down to the syslog service, and take a look right there. We are gathering up syslog information interface, state change, OSPF change, and then the interface came back up. And so the entire premise of this activity is to show you that you can configure once and push to many, as opposed to, all right, I got to SSH over to these 9 devices, type in these commands or cut and paste these commands or try to write some, script that's going to use either SNMP or expect or whatever the case may be. And we do it here in a GUI fashion, right? Using our network controller that's running on port 58,000. All right, well, that is going to do it for this packet tracer activity, which is packet tracer activity 8.8.2. This is the penultimate activity. The next video will be the last video for the course packet tracer and lab activities, which is 8.8.3. All right, as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.